to go into space required a great deal of training. I actually had to train for 2 years prior to that flight. Because in the case of the Soyuz spacecraft, there is no passenger seat. In fact, I had to pass all the same tests as any other professional astronaut to be able to be cleared to fly in space. You suddenly have a physical reaction. You just go like, wow, I am relating to the Earth in a way that I never had previously.
Do you have like a top 5 of moments in those travels that have been like most memorable?
For me, space is still, top of the list. And in particular, as amazing as the launch and reentry are, there's actually one that's even higher than that, which is something that I've never heard this word until after my flight. It's a word called the Overview-Effekt, which is how when you sit up in space looking back at the Earth, you feel like there's a fire hose of information about how the Earth works. It's pouring into your mind just by looking out the window. And you can see the edges of the tectonic plate movements. You're traveling around at 17,000 miles an hour. So you're going all the way around the Earth in 90 minutes. You see a sunrise or a sunset every 45 minutes. You cross whole continents in maybe 20 minutes. And you're only 250 miles up. You're actually pretty close. So you still get a really good view. You can see roads and parks and dams, quite clearly. But as you look out, you can see the edges of tectonic plates. You can see wildfires. You can see all the clear cutting of the forest that's being done. You can see the impact of humanity everywhere. And you go like, wow, I now know the true scale of the Earth by direct observation. And when you do that, you suddenly have a physical reaction. You just go like, wow, I am relating to the Earth in a way that I never had previously. And you have a physical reaction that seems a lot like, in a scary movie where they'll dolly a camera back but zoom the lens in to where the actor seems to stay the same size, but the long hallway they're in kind of goes shorter. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm looking at the Earth didn't change size, but my concept of scales went, whoa. And the Earth went from being this ambiguously large place with people living in distant lands to, wow, the Earth is really tiny and it's all deeply interconnected, and boy, are we despoiling it. And, we really better do something about this. All these sort of emotions kind of flood through you at that moment, and that sticks with you really forever.
Before you go to space, there must have been several procedures to prepare yourself for the extreme events. I would like to know, what exactly did you have to do before you went to space?
To go into space required a great deal of training. I actually had to train for 2 years prior to that flight. Because in the case of the Soyuz spacecraft, there is no passenger seat. Everyone inside is involved in managing the flight operations of that rocket going to space and from space. And even when you're in space, everything you might interact with, from mundane things like the toilets to the galley to the radios to life support, you have to know how to operate independently, because you don't want to have to tap on the shoulder of somebody else and say, hey, can you tell me how to flush the toilet? You need to learn all those things. Plus, since I was flying on a Russian vehicle, all the instruments are in Russian, all the commands are in Russian, all the manuals are in Russian, so I had to learn Russian. So сейчас я знаю русский язык. Русский язык это очень трудный. And so that was the hardest part of the training, was learning another language, which was terrible for me. In fact, I had to pass all the same tests as any other professional astronaut to be able to be cleared to fly in space.
Do you think that we will have the opportunity to travel to Mars?
Oh, I'm counting on it. I'm investing in it. So
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I like with the way Elon says it. He says, I want to be born here on Earth, die on Mars, but not on impact. And so, I hope that I get a chance to take my family on a trip to Mars, either as a visit or maybe even to immigrate. So, so I think humans will be settling Mars in the next 10 or 20 years. Obviously, if you travel well outside your even low Earth orbit, you're exposed to high levels of radiation and other challenges that I'll leave on the table for now. Even just floating around in microgravity is incredibly hard on the body. You know, your interocular eye pressure goes up. The pressure on the fluid on the inside of your eyes goes up by about 50%, and that seems to be causing long-term damage in a lot of astronauts' eyes. People lose bone mass and muscle mass that can generally be fixed with lots of exercise and resistance training. Also, osteoporosis medicine seems to help. But one of the more interesting challenges is that if you think about how your body's cells remain healthy, is, you know, old dead cells are flushed away and new cells are constantly replacing it. New cells come into existence through mitosis, you know, the splitting of one cell into two. But it turns out even that cell division process, the foundational architecture of renewing your body, requires gravity. And so almost anything you grow in space does not grow as well in space as it does on the ground in gravity. And it's not known how much gravity is enough. You know, 1G is great, 0G is tough. What about a third G or a sixth G, a third on Mars or a sixth on the moon? Is that enough to help those organelles orient? And we really just don't know. And, you know, you definitely wouldn't want to be pregnant en route because, again, embryo development would be a challenge. Yeah. And even when you get there, by the way, not only is there no air, no food, no shelter,
well, nothing,
radiation, nothing, and there's lots of radiation. All of those things have to be solved. But I believe that each one of them individually is solvable.
You just said that you would like to take your family to Mars, but I don't think that this will be your your next journey, right?
True.
So I was wondering what will be your next journey?
Well, I have two that I'm working on right now. One is well in the planning phase of going to the little island of Pitcairn, which is where the mutiny on the Bounty mutineers ended up, if you're familiar with that story. And then one I'm trying to join. So this one, they have not formally accepted me yet, but I'm in discussions with a team that is mounting an expedition to go back to Antarctica to search for the ship of Ernest Shackleton. So I'm hoping to support them, and if I get the chance, join them.
This sounds very, very cool.
By the way, there's still so much to do on Earth. We will not run out of fun things to do on Earth.